Hi, I used to own a 3D printing business and now I do not. That is partly because I didn't make that much money with it, and partly because it was too big of a headache and a time sink for me to want to deal with anymore. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what made my shop good, what made it bad, how you can improve your shop, and at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about what some of my best-selling products were and why I think they were my best-selling products. I think seeing the products that I sold and getting inspiration from that will be probably the most important part of this video, so make sure you stick around for that. So the first thing I want to talk about is, if you do not already own a 3D printer, I would strongly advise you against justifying the purchase of a 3D printer because you're going to pay for it by opening a shop. You might be able to pay for your printer by opening a shop and selling 3D printed knickknacks, but don't buy a printer on that premise. 3D printing is no longer a niche hobby. It is very much mainstream, and 3D printers are very much ubiquitous. And the percentage of people that own 3D printers and the percentage of people that own 3D printers and want to sell things is like, the overlap is insane. Everybody that has a 3D printer wants to sell 3D printed stuff because it offsets the somewhat lofty price of a 3D printer. So competition is fierce. You should be acquainted with the idea of a total addressable market. That is to say, there's only so much that people are willing to pay for certain things. I often give the example of tissue paper. You could make the softest, most luxurious tissue paper in the world. You know, you blow your nose into it and you feel like you're blowing your nose into Egyptian silk cotton, but people are only going to pay so much for that. At the end of the day, there's only so much of a price that you can put on having clear nostrils. You're going to very quickly experience diminishing returns. That is to say, you improve the quality of your product, you spend more on improving your product, but those increased expenses are not reflected in the selling price that consumers are willing to pay for your product. Why do I bring this up? Well, because there is currently a very active stigma against what people so eloquently call 3D printed garbage, because it is 3D printed garbage. Those little articulated slugs and dragons and stuff, those things are cool. Don't get me wrong. I love those little, sculptures and art pieces that people make with 3D printers. I love them. But you're not going to make that much money selling them, because it is much cooler to make your own and show your friends and say, hey, look, I made this, than it is to try to convince a stranger to spend $20 on it. I experience this all the time. The things that I make are not always cool to other people. When you create something new, even if it's not your own design, you have a connection, you have a bond to that thing because you made it. And it's often much more difficult to convince other people that they will have that same bond with something if they buy it from you than you have with it if you made it yourself. So there is a limit, right? There's a limit to what people will pay. You can raise that limit by providing more utility. You have to give people more of a reason to want to buy this. It can't just be it blows your nose. It has to be you blow your nose and, I don't know, it's a microfiber so you can clean your Lamborghini. You know what I mean? You have to do something. There has to be something else. There has to be some sort of utility. Now, I'm throwing around this word utility, but I don't want you to imagine like a Swiss Army knife where it has a whole bunch of tools on it, because that's not always what utility means. For a lot of people, if you create something totally niche, if you create something that people cannot find anywhere else, that is also a form of utility in this context. In my experience, one of the easiest, or at least the most fulfilling ways to increase the utility of your products for your customers is by trying to find products that are at the intersection of as many of your hobbies and skills as possible. Maybe you're a whiz at woodworking. Combine as many of your hobbies as possible, because when you start doing that, well, maybe there's 1 million people that have 3D printers, but of those people, how many also are good at woodworking? How many are also good at painting? You know what I mean? You got to combine these things so you can create additional utility for your customers. One of my more successful products was this Falcon 9 rocket nightlight. So anybody can take this little design, download it, and print it on their 3D printer, but not everybody knows how to use Arduino and LEDs. Not everybody knows how to solder. So I combined all of these things and I made a little night light that has the knob and the on-off switch, and it's got different light routines, so you can press the button to change the mode and the lights will change and stuff like that. And people really liked that. I sold those for about $40, and people frequently, that was one of my better selling products for a long time. It was a headache to make. That's another thing you got to pay attention to, is the more of your hobbies and skills that you combine to make a product, the more of a headache each product is to make. But it was also $40, which was significantly more than some of my other dumber products. This is all to say that your product should be niche, your designs should be proprietary, they should be things that nobody else can do or make, at least easily. So I've been talking about ways that you can increase the selling price of your products. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, well, why don't you just sell more products that are cheaper? And while that would normally be a viable strategy, here are some things you got to consider. The fees on Etsy are insane. I can't speak to other websites because I've only used Etsy, but I can't imagine that they're that much different. Here are all of the fees that I incurred on a recent sale of mine. The listing fees, so 20 cents every time you sell something. Technically, the listing sold, but if you have more, you can relist it and it will do that automatically for you. So 20 cents right off the bat. Processing fee, 3% plus 25 cents. For me, this was like $2 on this purchase. Transaction fee, that's not the processing fee. Transaction fee, 6.5% of the item's selling price. Shipping expense, this is not an Etsy fee, but it is something to consider. You are going to have to pay shipping. On most of my products, it's pretty rare that I pay anything less than, $3 to $4 for shipping. On top of that, though, if you purchase your labels through Etsy, Etsy also charges you a shipping fee, expense fee, or something. It's 6.5% of the shipping expense. So you see all these fees, they add up like crazy. It makes it hard to sell anything for less than $10 because you're really only going to be making, $2 to $3 on it. And then you start to wonder, well, if it took me an hour to make, is it really worth my time for $2 or $3? Is it really worth the hassle of having to drive to the shipping company and having to deal with whiny customers? Just kidding, they're not whiny, but it is an increased complexity to your life that you do have to wonder, is it worth it for me at this price point? When I went on vacation last year, I had a streak of really bad luck and I had a whole bunch of orders come in while I was on vacation because I didn't think to close my shop while I would be gone. So I had to constantly be messaging people and saying, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm out of town for the entire week. It's going to be a week before I even get home, and then I still have to make your product, so it's probably going to be 2 weeks before you get it. And it's just a headache. Some people probably don't mind this added complexity. I'm sure many people can probably handle it a lot better than I did. But for me, it was more than I wanted to deal with for an extra couple dollars per week, which is what I was getting because my sales were kind of abysmal. I do want to make it clear that it's not a question of whether or not it's possible to make money with an Etsy shop or with a 3D printing shop of any kind. It's definitely possible to make money. But for me personally, my experience was that it was a large commitment for a couple extra bucks a month. I was probably profiting, I'd be lucky if I profited a couple dozen bucks. I wanted to talk a little bit about intellectual property too, because there is somewhat of a gray area. Thingiverse, the default setting is to create a Creative Commons attribution, which means that you put this work, this piece of intellectual property that you've made into the public domain for people to use. That means that people can edit your thing, people can download it and print it and sell it themselves. People can do whatever they want with your file and they don't have to credit you. That is the default setting. So there are a lot of things, a lot of really good things uploaded to Thingiverse under that Creative Commons attribution. But here's the thing. I mentioned competition towards the beginning of the video. Competition for 3D print shops is fierce. And the amount of people that are looking to make a couple extra bucks by scalping Creative Commons attributions off of Thingiverse is immense. If you find something that you think you could probably sell and it's listed as a Creative Commons attribution, I can almost guarantee you there's already somebody selling it. On top of that, and this is sort of a moral thing that you may or may not agree with, but it's kind of scummy to sell things that other people made under your own name and you profit from them and they don't. That just doesn't quite sit right with me. Again, this is a gray area because it's not, strictly speaking, illegal, but in my opinion, it is pretty immoral and kind of lame. If you are owning a 3D print shop where you sell 3D printed things of any sort, they should be things that you came up with, that you designed. If it's a shop in your name, they should be your things. Is it legal? Yes, probably. I don't know, actually, if you could get sued. You probably won't get sued. You might get delisted. That's probably the most likely thing. Last couple points are kind of small, but just important to bring up if you are, if you've watched to this point and you still decide you want to open a 3D print shop. Don't overwhelm your customers with colors. I know that it's cool that 3D printing, you can print things in a million different colors and you want to buy so many colors so that they have all these choices. But I found that after like 4 or 5 colors, people just get overwhelmed. They don't actually want that many colors. Pick a couple colors that you think your product looks good in and actually test it out and make sure you think it looks good in that color and then offer those colors. There's a couple reasons that you want to do this. This simplifies your workflow. It makes it easier to keep parts. I recommend that you keep a stock of your products because it is sort of a headache when things pile up and if you're unprepared and people's prints get put into your queue of things that you need to make and it can be, days long because you're trying to print high quality things at a low layer height, as you should be. Also with the color thing, last thing on this part, every once in a while somebody will DM you and ask if you can do a custom color for them. And then when that opportunity arises because you didn't have every single color on the rainbow listed, you can either say, hey, yeah, I'll do it for an added fee. Or you can say, yes, I would love to do that for you because customer service is my utmost priority. And then they're more likely to give you a good review on your store, which is going to influence potential future customers' gravitation towards your store, which will help you also. So what were some of my most popular products? Well, one of them, interestingly, was a double pendulum. I sold a double pendulum kit for $25. This was by far and away my best-selling product. It's something that's pretty niche, has kind of a cult following in the realm of mathematical chaos, and something that not a lot of other people had made. Another really popular product of mine was a Chick-fil-A sauce tower that I made. I had a couple different versions. I had a wall-mounted version, a sort of ramp like collector hopper sort of version. This was a good product because it actually didn't take that much plastic. It wasn't a super detailed design, so I could print it with a 0.8 millimeter nozzle. So I could print this, 300 millimeter tall thing in only a couple hours. It didn't actually take that long at all. It was my own thing. It served a purpose, and it was very giftable. It was definitely something that, you got a buddy that you want to buy a gift for, that they like Chick-fil-A. It's kind of something that's kind of quirky. I sold this for $17. I only offered it in white because at the time I had a whole bunch of extra white PLA, so I just printed a whole bunch of them and just kept a little stock, and that made it a lot easier for me because then every time somebody ordered one, I just pull one up from off the shelf, ship it, easy. The Falcon 9 space rocket lamp night light, I already talked a little bit about this one. This one was great because it was something that used Arduino, electronics, LEDs, it combined a whole bunch of things. This was my most expensive product that I sold. I also sold a battery-powered version for $50, and people were more than happy to pay that because it was something that's kind of complex and intricate. It's definitely very giftable, and it's something that, at the time at least, this was in 2018, Tesla and Elon Musk hadn't become the, widely talked about phenomenon that it is now. So at the time, it was very niche. People that, loved Elon Musk, loved SpaceX, that kind of stuff. Elon nerds are more than willing to shell out $50 for something that symbolizes their love for God King Elon. So it was perfect for that. I forgot there was actually something that was more expensive than the nightlight that I sold. There was a stock ticker that I made that I sold for $80, and that was a Raspberry Pi Zero W connected to a 1602 LCD screen. And I had created a whole bunch of Python scripts and programs that would go fetch data from the internet and download it to the stock ticker and display the data live. So you could, plug in a keyboard, log in to your home internet, and then it would display your favorite stocks. That was something that took me an exceedingly long time to do. But the important thing about it, and with all of these, is that I had fun doing it. I really, really enjoy finance, and I wanted a stock ticker for myself. So regardless of whether or not I was planning to sell it in my Etsy shop, it was something that I enjoyed doing and I had fun doing because I wanted to do it. And I think that really summarizes the whole thesis of what I'm trying to say here. If you're going to do a 3D print shop, do it right. Do it in a way that it causes as little headache to yourself as possible. This should be something that even if you made no money, you would still be content because you're having fun. That really is, I think, the most important part. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I know this was a long one. Please, if you have any experience with your own 3D print shop, I would love if you share it in the comments so that other people can get a wider range of experiences. I'm sure there are people that were more successful than me, that had a better time doing it than me, so I would love to hear from you as well. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Please check out my others if you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe. That helps me out greatly, as I am just rounding the corner to 1,000 subscribers, which thank you for that, again, by the way. Much thanks, much gratitude. Hope you learned something and enjoyed this video. And most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day.